Everybody on the bridge tensed as Athena announced, "First defense wing about to make contact with the attack force." As the defense wing was revealed on the main console screen, Adama was struck by how pitifully small they looked against the wall of the Cylon armada.
"By all that's holy!"
one of the wing's pilots yelled over his comm. One of the lead Cylon ships went into a roll and fired as it flew by a Viper. The Viper took the hit full on and exploded. Almost concurrently, 2 more Viper ships were wiped out by Cylons. Greenbean's voice resounded through the bridge.
"There are too many of them! Roll out! Hit them from the sides!"
The Colonial Vipers peeled off, but they looked too thinly spread to do much damage.
"Where's the Red Squadron?"
Greenbean hollered. Turning back to the screen, he saw 2 more Vipers exploding.
"So much for trying to hit them from the sides,"
he shouted angrily. "Where are they?" Adama said. Then his son's voice came through the comm line.
"Revved up and ready for takeoff."
The launch lights came on.
"Your wing ready, Jolly?" "Ready, sir." "Let's go."
Apollo's Red Squadron streaked across the sky and into the minefield corridor.
"The shuttles are arriving, sir," a bridge officer said. "Reports show other ships rising up from the surface of Carillon."
"More Cylons?"
Athena said. "Running visual idents now."
On the comm line, Greenbean shouted,
"Yahoo!"
as he observed the arrival of Apollo's squadron. Battlestar Galactica by Glenn A. Larson and Robert Thurston. Chapter 10, Part 2. In the freighter's pilot compartment, Cassiopeia made Starbuck's jaw drop open. The tall young socialator obviously knew the ropes when it came to the bizarre technology of the Ovian tanker. Devices that seemed meaningless to Starbuck were duck soup for her. She started throwing levers and pressing buttons before she even settled herself in the co-pilot's seat. "You been on one of these before, Cassie?" Starbuck asked.
"My dad, for the brief times I was allowed to see him, piloted a freighter. And you call me Cassie again and I'll see to it personally this ship blows up."
The ship began to rumble all around them. "You want to take us up?" Starbuck said. "You seem to."
"I'd do it, but I'm afraid I'll have to admit reluctantly that your instincts would serve us better just now."
Starbuck strapped himself into the pilot's seat and tried to get the feel of the strange ship from its rattling vibrations. "Okay to lift off?" he asked Cassiopeia. She smiled and raised an eyebrow. Studying the equipment, she replied, "Okay, lift off." Cassiopeia had done her part of the job so well that they took flight just behind the shuttles. But the tanker was slower, and too weighted down. It could not keep up. Starbuck watched the shuttles disappear through the clouds, leaving a brief red glow on their ominous black surfaces. It was a product of his imagination, he knew, but he thought he could sense the volatile liquid Tilium sloshing against the sides of its heavy containers. One good jarring shock, and it was goodbye, bucko. Starbuck would be happy to deposit this payload upon the deck of the Galactica, where experts could tenderly transport it to safe cargo holds. "Scanner shows Cylon craft approaching us just below the level of the cloud cover," Starbuck said. "Are the shuttles in trouble?" Cassiopeia asked. "Nope. They seem to have gotten off in time, or else the Cylons don't give a hoot about a pair of surface-to-air shuttlecrafts." "They seem to give a hoot about us." "I'll have to try evasion tactics. Hold on." Starbuck leveled off the tanker and headed it north, over the Ovian Casino and Tilium mine, and underneath the Cylon ships revealed by the scanner. The Cylons did not alter their direction, but instead started up through the clouds. Starbuck looked below. Some Ovians had emerged from the ground and were running around frantically. Starbuck wondered what their running amok was about, when he heard a deep rumble from the ground area. It came through loud and clear over the rattle of the tanker.
"What's that?"
Cassiopeia said. "An explosion! In the mine. Something's setting Tilium off. We have to get the blazes out of here." Cassiopeia shrieked. Starbuck knew exactly what was going through her mind. If the tremors from the underground explosion rocked the tanker, the tilium in its holds would. He didn't want to think about it. The planet itself could go up. He headed the tanker toward the clouds again. If he got away from Carillon, if he got away from the perimeters of the mine explosions, if he successfully avoided pursuers, if he didn't encounter the attacking Cylon Star Force, if he could get through any fighters attacking Galactica, if he could execute the extremely difficult landing of a tanker full of volatile fuel upon the deck of a besieged Battlestar, if he could do all that, everything else was easy. All he had to do then was climb in his Viper and go off and join his buddies in the suicidal battle against the Cylons. Not to worry, he told himself. Everything was just hunky-dory. A second, more powerful explosion rocked the tanker.
Oh no!
Cassiopeia yelled, looking out the side window. Starbuck could see fire reflections on the glass, and he knew immediately that something down on the Carillon's surface, perhaps the mine itself, was on fire, and perhaps setting off chain reactions all along the surface of the planet. He aimed the tanker for a particularly dark cloud. As he went into it, he passed a Cylon warship coming out. He could sense it swinging around to follow, even though he now could see nothing but cloud outside any portal. Apollo sliced the Cylon's ship into ragged, burning fragments. Glancing to his left, he saw Jolly's plane in trouble. "Look out on your wing, Jolly!" he cried. "Which one?" Jolly responded. "They're coming in from all over the place there." Jolly was interrupted by a hit on his tail. His fighter started rocking from side to side. "There's too many of them, Skipper!" Greenbean shouted. "What do you mean, too many?" Jolly said. "I'm here, aren't I? Watch out at 3 o'clock, Skipper." Apollo evaded the Cylon with a sweep left, a quarter turn, and a spin to the right. Coming out of spin, he opened fire, cleaving his attacker across the middle. Both pieces started to go out of control and fall toward Carillon. Another Cylon fighter started tracking his wake and firing, and he put his Viper into a reverse loop, coming down on the Cylon from above and running a line of fire along the top of the entire aircraft. A sudden explosion, and the Cylon ship had been instantly transfigured to debris. In the distance, he could see one of the fighters of the Blue Squadron shattering under the fire of 8 Cylon attackers. "Don't think we can hold out much longer, Captain," Jolly shouted. "Monk just bought it." "Do your best." "I'm doing miracles, sir, but it's not—" Jolly's sentence got cut off by a trio of swooping Cylons. Apollo couldn't wait around to see the outcome of the attack, because he was abruptly faced by a dozen of the enemy, trying to make him the spoke of their pinwheel attack. A bridge officer reported to Adama that 4 of the Cylon ships that had sneaked onto the surface of Carillon were now emerging from the cloud cover, apparently to join the alien armada and attack the Galactica's squadron from behind. However, they did not count on the artillery on the Galactica and the luxury liner Rising Star. Catching the Cylon craft as they attempted a flyby, both large ships opened fire with long-range beams. The 4 ships exploded almost simultaneously. The crew on the Galactica bridge cheered. "Another unidentified vessel approaching," Ty said. "Looks like... yes, it's one of the Ovian freighters. Could they be launching an attack? Might be trouble. Should I order it fired on?"
"No!"
screamed Athena from the communications console.
"It's Starbuck. He just radioed. He's bringing a tilium load."
"A tilium load? Here? In the middle of combat?" Ty said, incredulous. Adama laughed, a bizarre sound to the crew around him, who had not heard him laugh so heartily for some time. "That's Starbuck. Prepare the landing deck." "Well, prepare it." The bridge crew sprang into action.
"Oh no!"
Athena screamed as she stared at the scanner screen. Just beyond the tanker, a Cylon fighter had broken from the Carillon cloud cover, heading directly for Starbuck's ship.
No, he can't be killed,
Athena yelled. From another corner of the screen, a Viper, just launched from the Galactica, appeared. "That's Boomer's ship!" Ty cried. Boomer's Viper raced on a course to intercept the Cylon that was zeroing in on Starbuck. On the Galactica's bridge, everybody held their breaths simultaneously. Just as it seemed the Cylon fighter would open fire on the tanker, Boomer guided his ship to a position in between the Cylon and the tanker and opened fire. In a second, the Cylon ship was a collection of specks that looked like momentary jamming interference on the viewing screen. Another cheer went up from the bridge crew. "Look at that, will you, Ty?" Adama said, pointing to the screen. Then he gestured toward other screens, showing Cylon aircraft being hit by the smaller but more maneuverable Colonial Fleet Vipers. "We're doing it. This ship, it's... I don't know, it's..."
coming back to life,
Athena said, coming up beside her father. "That's exactly it. It's as if the Galactica's been sick, tainted by running away from the battle. Now we're proving ourselves again, Wait," Ty said. "Listen." He turned up a volume switch. Boomer's voice literally boomed through the bridge.
Hey, you guys, move over. Let me have some of this. Boomer,
Apollo said.
"Where you been?" "You know darn well where I've been, on your lousy milk run."
On the screen, Boomer's Vipers started blasting at a trio of Cylon ships, all of which seemed to explode at the same time.
"Boom, boom, boom,"
Boomer said.
"Hey, Boomer,"
Apollo said.
"welcome home."
Apollo's ship streaked into the picture. His and Boomer's craft seemed to touch wings as they headed toward a line of Cylon fighters.
"Hey, guys,"
Jelly shouted.
"we've got a fighting chance." "You know it,"
Boomer shouted.
"In a minute, we're going to be filling this sky with fire."
Adama turned toward Ty. "Jelly's right," he said. "We've got more than a chance. Are all our people back on board?" "When Starbuck gets here with the fuel freighter, that ought to be everybody. Nobody else reporting in from Carillon. Things are bad down there anyway. Explosions." Ty paused. "God, we lost a lot of people down there." Adama nodded. "Yep," he said. "And all that I can think of to say is, we've seen worse. Not very comforting. But we're turning it around now. I can feel it. We'll get those slimy... The Galactica's alive again. Do you understand, Ty? Do you?" Ty looked at his commander as if he thought him on the verge of madness, but he nodded agreement anyway. On the screens, Cylon ships were blowing up all over the sky, as the human pests inside their Vipers slipped in and out of the enemy's traps. Concentrating their attention on a separate screen, Adama and Athena watched Starbuck's approach to the landing deck. "Easy, boy," Adama muttered.
"Don't blow it now, bucko. Please, please, don't blow it now,"
Athena whispered. The tanker seemed too large, too bulky for a smooth landing, especially under the present battle conditions.
"He's gotta make it, Dad,"
Athena cried. "You're right there. If he doesn't, there will be a hole in the side of this Battlestar big enough to send it out of commission for a good long time, maybe forever. Watch it, Starbuck. That's right. Good. Easy now." One miscue, one bad bounce on the Galactica's deck, and the tanker was sure to explode. And Starbuck was already notorious for flashy landings. Just before the ship made contact with the deck, both Adama and Athena inhaled sharply and audibly. "Come on, bucko," Ty whispered. Starbuck eased the tanker onto the deck so smoothly, so delicately, the fuel ship appeared weightless. When it gently glided to a stop, another unanimous cheer went up from the bridge crew. Adama could not help smiling.
"Precision flying?"
Athena said to him. "Exactly!" Adama shouted. Starbuck ran down the gangway as the crew began unloading the tanker, rapidly, but delicately. Athena's jubilant mood was momentarily diminished when she saw the tall socialator, looking quite self-satisfied, follow Starbuck down the gangway. But her anger was brief. At least Starbuck was alive. That was what counted. Starbuck joined the battle by paying back Boomer his favor. One after the other, he wiped out 4 Cylon ships that had Boomer caught in a pinwheel attack. "Anybody want to fly over and touch me for luck?" Starbuck yelled. "Starbuck," Apollo said. "Yo! On your tail!" He looked over his shoulder, a Cylon fighter coming in from each side. "Nothing to worry about," he said, but a Cylon laser torpedo came too close, and the explosion sent Starbuck's ship rocking. He banked it over and away from the pair of Cylons, who continued pursuit. "Boomer," Apollo said, "you give him a hand?" "Again? Well, I'm trying." Boomer swung over and began firing. "Don't take too long, Boomer," Starbuck said. Another explosion shook Starbuck's ship. Boomer got the attacker in his sights and pulled the trigger with a vengeance. The Cylon fighter made 1,000 beautiful little pieces. "Come on, Starbuck, Boomer," Apollo yelled. "Let's triple team him." The 3 fighters quickly formed a triangular formation much like the one they'd used in blazing the path through the minefield, and they swept down together on the wall of Cylon ships, shooting left and right, up and down. Cracks seemed to form in the Cylon ranks. A series of explosions joined many of the close-flying craft. Apollo, Starbuck, and Boomer all together went into a tight turn and fled the counterattack. "That's a few for the Atlantia," Starbuck said. "And for Zack," Apollo said. Other Vipers from the red and blue squadrons came together and blasted away at the Cylon spacecraft. The wall of menace was quickly becoming a wall of fire, and shattered fighters, Starbuck thought, as he swooped down on still another sitting duck target. On the bridge, the reports came in so fast that they were difficult to assimilate. Adama felt at the center of a vast network of communications. "Commander, scanner shows a series of mammoth explosions on the surface of Carillon. Half the planet is blowing up, looks like." A screen displayed the large fires on the planet's surface. Another one showed many explosions occurring in the sky above the mine. "What are those?" Adama asked. "Not sure, but we think it's the rest of the Cylon war party that sneak attacked us down there. Appears they all didn't take off before the mine explosion started." "Commander," Ty reported, "the Cylon Supreme Star Force seems to be retreating, at least for the moment. Should we give pursuit? All our pilots are begging to pursue." Adama wanted to give the order to pursue, but it was too dangerous to let the Vipers get too far away from the main fleet. "No," he said. "We must conserve our resources. There's too much to do yet." "Should I order the Vipers to return to base?" "No, we better go out and meet them. Contact the Rising Star and the other ships. Tell them we're all heading through the minefield corridor. We've got to get out of this trap. Then set all ships for the hyperspace jump back. I don't know for sure what's going on down on Carillon, but we can't afford to take chances. We've got to get moving in case the whole planet blows up. It gets any worse down there, and what with a working minefield on one side and an exploding planet on the other, we'd be between the devil and the deep blue." "Yes, sir," Ty said. "I'm on it." Adama raced around the bridge as they set their course for the minefield corridor. He barked orders, directing the assembling of the fleet, the tricky flight through the minefield, and the subsequent landing of the flight squadrons. The new crisis developed almost as soon as all the ships were outside the minefield. The Cylons had reassembled, rebuilt their attacking wall, and were heading back toward the fleet. Adama turned to Apollo. "All right, Captain," he said. "What's our potential? Can we give them a good fight, Apollo?" Apollo punched out the information on the board below the main scanner, examined the data that came up on the screen. "I'm afraid not, sir. There's still too many of them. In the long run, they'd wear us down. If we hadn't just been through a fight, we might be able to do something, but just now? All right. After the last time, I hate like hell to retreat from another battle. I don't want the military record of the Galactica to be tainted again. Sir, it's hardly taint when we're saving what's left of the human race. That's what I said the first time. You have the knack of always being right. Apollo and Adama exchanged smiles. Adama saw, over his son's shoulders, that his daughter endorsed Apollo's words. And anyway, Starbuck interjected, you know the old maxim. We're not retreating. We're just advancing in another direction. All right, then. We'll make the hyperspace jump in. Sir, there isn't time, Ty said. The Cylons will close in on us before we can all make that jump. We have to set up a diversionary action. The Red Squadron will take care of that, Apollo said, then waited for Adama's response. After a brief moment, the commander nodded agreement. All right, he said. But the Galactica will be the last ship to make the jump. Have the rest of the fleet go first. Apollo, you take your squadron out there and stall them. Then get back here in time for the jump. Those are your orders. Aye, sir. Apollo began running to the elevators leading to the bridge, shouting back to Starbuck at the communications console. Assemble Red! Jolly and Greenbean are gonna love this, muttered Starbuck as he set the alert klaxon ringing. There wasn't a moment of quiet on the bridge as everybody watched the pilots scrambling toward their launch cribs, and the fighters, now refueled and made ready by the Galactica's efficient flight crews, starting down the tubes. Suddenly, as if to add insult to injury, Ty shouted out, "Oh my God!" "What is it, Ty?" "This is terrible. I just sent a message back through the secret transmission channel to the rest of the fleet, the ships we left behind. They sent back this." He waved the report under Adama's nose. "An attack against them has just commenced. A group of Cylon warships are surrounding them and begun firing." "Have they any chance?" "If they can hold off until we make the jump back there." Adama turned towards Starbuck. "Lieutenant." "Yes, sir?" "Assemble the Blue Squadron. I want it ready for a fight as soon as we make the jump." Aye, sir." Starbuck, waving back at Athena, made his run to the elevators. For the next few minutes, as the fleet made preparations for the hyperspace jump, and Apollo's squadron blasted away at the Cylon attackers, and the Blue Squadron made ready, then settled themselves into G couches for the hyperspace jump, the bridge of the Galactica was ablaze with activity. The timing had to be exact, and it was. As Apollo's squadron returned to the Galactica after their hit-and-run assault, the initial pre-jump mechanisms were set. After the returning pilots were safely ensconced in G couches, the jump was made. A long moment passed. Then suddenly the Galactica found itself in the middle of the Cylon attack on the rest of the fleet ships. Starbuck and his squadron raced to their launch cribs, boarded their ships, and catapulted themselves into the battle. The Cylons, so adept at ambush, seemed surprised at finding themselves under sudden and unexpected fire. If the Cylon's imperious leader could have viewed the battle activity aboard the Galactica, he would have been struck by the contrast on his own ship. Even the messages along his communication network had dwindled since the humans had begun fighting back and winning. The losses on the Cylon side had no correspondence with any defeats in their previous history. Since his third brain had more time than usual to contemplate the nature of his defeat, he could trace his mistakes quite far back. It occurred to him that his supreme mistake seemed to be dealing with humans in the first place. However he tried to interpret the meaning of the defeat, his mind returned to the havoc wrought by the human pest. The universe had been in order until the humans had started asserting themselves. Even then, the Cylons had avoided actual encounters for some time. When they had tried to convince the humans to leave those areas in space they had usurped, the humans had not listened to reason. There had been no solution but war. Although the Cylons had made the first attack, it was in fact the humans who had precipitated the war by their stubborn interference in Cylon affairs and their refusal to give up their colonies and go back to whatever sector of the universe they came from. The leader tapped the memories of previous leaders and examined every dealing the Cylons had had with the enemy. They were like a disease, these humans. Once they had infected an area with their presence, there was no cure. The disease spread until it touched all life forms. In that way, they had infected the Cylons and brought them to this low point in their history. The defeat of both Cylon task forces by the small contingent of human fighters had shocked the leader, especially the way his ships had fallen prey to the diversionary action of Captain Apollo and his crew. Embarrassing. The leader felt a pang of anger when he thought of Apollo. The man was, after all, the son of the hated Commander Adama, the prime source of all the human victories. Who would have expected, for example, that he would return to his near-derelict ships traveling slowly through space and ambush the Cylon attackers? The final horrendous defeat that Imperious leader now had to consider. The whole campaign might have been salvaged if it had not been for those two men, Apollo and Adama. It was the leader's keenest desire now to rid space of these two reckless humans. He would experience great pleasure if he could personally torture the two men, father and son. Well, he still had a chance at killing Apollo and Adama. But no, it was wrong to think such hateful, vengeful thoughts. It was unworthy of the possessor of a third brain. He should not be brooding over the series of defeats. He should be planning the new strategies of attack. Gradually, the truth of his position dawned on him. Any other Imperious leader, realizing the import of the defeats he had suffered, would have resigned the position immediately and ordered his own death. It was the only logical thing to do. His death should be the price for allowing the humans to survive when their annihilation had been certain. But he could not do that. No, he must survive. It was essential. He must pursue the hateful Adama and Apollo and the rest of their verminous race to whatever part of the universe they would now travel to, with their renewed strength and their supplies of new fuel. All reports indicated that, after the defeat of the Cylons, they had taken their hyperspace and hyperspace-converted craft and vanished from their formerly camouflaged pocket of space. They had not been located since. Well, he would locate them, and he would go after them again, and he would slaughter them. He could not die until that final annihilation had taken place. He could not allow himself the questionable privilege of suicide as an historical failure. It occurred to him that other leaders would not have had these qualms about giving up the position and dying. They would not have hated. They would not have desired revenge so obsessively. Why was he driven so, he wondered. And suddenly he knew why. He had been dealing with the humans so long, thinking like a human so long, that he had become like a human. His desire for revenge was quite human-like. That was the final defeat, perhaps, that he had become like his enemy. Well, so be it. He would destroy what had become human within him by destroying the humans themselves. Adama he would kill personally. For now, he must wait. Adama raised his silver goblet to signal a toast. All around the table that formed a circle in the middle of the bridge, the crew, civilians, and council became quiet. He took a moment to gaze at them, then past the gathering at the starfield portal beyond them. It seemed as if the stars in this part of space glittered more than any he had ever seen. He felt optimistic, hopeful. "I toast our victories and the achievement of our goals," he began. "Hear, hear," said Counselor Anton, who was sitting to Adama's right. "And I ask you to remember for a moment the various men and women who died in the Cylon invasion of the 12 worlds, and the subsequent events in which the members of the Galactica fleet acted so valiantly." During the moment of silence, many of the assemblage bowed their heads in prayer. Adama resumed his speech. "I hope that out of this, all this tragedy, will come some good. I am sure we have not seen the end of treachery, either human, like Count Baltar, or alien, like the Cylons." He glanced toward Sire Yuri, who slid down a bit in his seat, secretly glad not to be included on the commander's list of villains. Perhaps his resignation from the council had soothed Adama's anger toward him. "I wish to take this occasion," Adama continued, "to officially announce my acceptance of the job as president of the council, and thank you for electing me." "We didn't elect you," Counselor Anton interjected. "We merely took back and tore up your resignation." "Be that as it may, I thank you. Now we go seeking a place for our race, a place to settle and people in peace. A place in the universe where we can test our potentials again. Perhaps we may find it on the planet our mythology calls Earth. I see no one scoffs when I mention Earth this time. Perhaps now you believe that our little ragtag fleet can do it, can perform this lonely quest as we flee from Cylon tyranny. Discover anew the shining planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, as a toast I give you hope." They all drank, and the meal, a simple feast prepared from food grown in their agricultural project during their brief stay on Carillon, commenced. Many in the company marveled at how much better this simpler fare was than the exotic delicacies fed them by the Ovians. The counselors especially agreed. Pei, through blood analysis, had established that Lotte had drugged the counselors' foods, making them susceptible to ideas they would not otherwise have entertained. Serena, seated 2 places away from Adama, leaned his way and spoke.
You really do believe we can find this place, this Earth, don't you, Commander?
"Yes, I do. I realize what you're implying with your journalistic question, Serena, that we are chasing a dream. Sometimes dreams are worth the chasing. Along the way, who can say what we may find, what we may learn?"
Don't mistake me, Commander. I'm on your side.
"I appreciate your saying that. There have been times recently when I was not entirely sure who was on my side, including some who were quite close to me." Athena put a consoling hand on her father's arm, and Apollo nodded. "But let's not, while everything is tranquil and our needs are being adequately supplied, dwell on such matters. It is a time for joy." "I'm all for that," Starbuck said.
Yes, aren't you?
Athena said, with a meaningful glance toward Cassiopeia, who was seated across from her.
I'm at peace with you,
Cassiopeia said.
See that you stay that way. Now.
Athena glared at her, then broke out laughing.
Okay, she said. You're on.
You sound like me, Starbuck said.
10 to 1 I don't,
Athena said. Hey, Starbuck, Boomer called from a seat farther down the table. When you gonna pay me off for saving your life out there? But I saved your life right after that. And I saved your life right after that, bucko, Swallow your fuel line, Boom Boom. Starbuck and Boomer's performance added to the party's festive air. Apollo leaned towards Serena and whispered, "This is supposed to be a celebration. You look a bit down in the mouth."
Does it show?
"Yes, it does, and you're too pretty to look sad."
Drop the military strategy, please. You know I'm receptive to you without it.
"Sorry. Can't easily get rid of my military instincts."
Try.
Apollo smiled. Serena could barely resist that smile. "Sure," he said. "But you haven't explained the sad look, Serena." She looked down at her plate of food, swirled an asparagus stalk around with her fork.
Well, it's Boxy. You know how close I am to him, and, well, I just can't be happy with him so miserable.
I noticed he didn't look so cheerful out in the hallway not long ago. What's wrong?
It's Muffet, too. Boxy's moping about losing him.
Apollo hit his forehead with the palm of his hand. "I forgot! How could I? I promised him I would—" Serena touched Apollo's arm.
You couldn't be expected to do anything about it. Not with battles going on and...
"But I did do something. Where's Wilker? Wilker? Where are you?" From far down the table, the doctor yelled back and stood up. "Did you bring it?" Apollo asked. "Of course," Wilker hollered back. "Just waiting for you to tell me what to do with it." Wilker held up a large leather case. "All right," Apollo said, and turned back to Serena. "Where's Boxy now?"
I'll get him.
Serena was gone only a short time. She came back dragging the obviously reluctant boy by the arm. Boxy appeared very downcast. "Hey, trainee," Apollo said. "What's got you down?" As he addressed the boy, he signaled Wilker to come down the table.
I'm okay. I want to go back to my cubicle,
Boxy said. "But you're invited to our victory feast," Apollo said.
Don't want anything to eat. I'm not hungry.
"Okay, we'll let Muffy take your place."
Apollo!
Serena hollered. "Dr. Wilker, you got the goods?" "Right here." "Open the case." The doctor opened the case, and Muffet, too, hopped out, right onto a plate of mashed potatoes. Extricating his paws from the food, he leaped into Boxy's waiting arms. The boy's face was completely transformed. His eyes glowed with happiness. "You were saying?" Apollo asked Serena.
What did you do?
"Easy. Muffy's a droid, after all. All Dr. Wilker here had to do was straighten out a few wires, replace a few parts, patch on a new bit of fur here and there. Right, Doc?" "It's a fairly easy repair job." "Right. And the doctor here has a Humpty Dumpty complex. He makes sure everything gets put back together. The doctor's better than all the king's men and all that—"
Oh, shut up, Apollo, and let me hug you,
Serena said. Boxy, still holding Muffy, squeezed in at the table between Serena and Apollo. He managed to shovel quite a few spoonfuls of food into his mouth. Serena raised a glass to Apollo, and her mouth formed the words,
Thank you, my love.
Adama smiled at the happy Serena. She raised her glass again and addressed the commander.
To Earth,
She said,